Home again. This is a big story in New Zealand. The entire country will now have the opportunity to make submissions on a proposed precedent setting New Zealand first use of the Resource Management Act that could pave the way for land evictions. Now, a week ago today, we continued a series of stories about 16 homeowners in Matata, a small town between Tauranga and Whakatane, who may soon be forced out of their homes and off their land because their local council says it's too dangerous for them to live there anymore. They asked for all New Zealanders to be allowed to have a say because a precedent will be set that will be binding in coastal communities, communities under threat from climate change, sea level rise, you name it. And the precedent could be used in the future to evict anyone at risk from climate change, for example. But the residents were shot down. But then, the day after our story went to air, the council changed its mind. This is important. Zach Fleming did the original story. Here he is with more.
Yeah, at least we've had one small win.
Far from ecstatic, but it's a starkly different Rick Wally to the one I spoke to last week.
It doesn't matter what we say, they're not going to change anything anyway.
At the time, hope was running out that Rick would be able to stay in his family home after the Bay of Plenty Regional Council voted to limit a proposed plan change, one that'd force him and his neighbours off their land, to only people directly affected. That's around 400 locals. But now it's done a U-turn.
Decided that we would ask the regional council if they would change that to an open notification, public notification.
And public notification means that anyone from New Zealand can make a submission on this now?
Correct.
Whakatane District Council Deputy Mayor Judy Turner. And you might want to use your right to have a say on what's happening in Matata because
it is going to open up a huge can of worms, which is their words.
It will be an example that all councils refer to when they're considering similar issues.
GNS Science Natural Hazards Planning researcher Emily Grace says if Rick and his neighbours have their land use rights removed under the RMA, it'll set a precedent that could be used elsewhere, like when the seas rise due to global warming.
It is not just a Matata problem, it is nationwide.
The problem, simplified, is the Whakatane District Council let Rick and his neighbours rebuild after a massive landslide cascaded down the steep coastal hills behind their street in 2005. But then 7 years later, in 2012, it changed its mind and said they had to leave because it said the risk of another event couldn't be mitigated. The residents of Clem Elliott Drive disagree. They want the right to stay. Whakatane District Council says it changed its mind after lobbying for the Bay of Plenty Regional Council to limit notification because it couldn't find contact details for everyone in Matata.
There's quite a bit of multiply owned land in Matata, and we had real difficulty in locating a number of trustees and people with interest in some of this multiply owned land so that we could have given everybody that chance to make a submission. And there was also some pressure from outside to make it more generally notified.
Local Government New Zealand President Dave Cull says it's a good thing that it's changed to public notification.
And I think commendable in that it puts the whole process out into the public. It's transparent and it will assist the public to understand the issues that are being resolved here. If it hadn't been notified and it was a more closed process, there could be increasing misunderstanding of what is actually having to be done.
But Local Government New Zealand won't be making a submission.
We don't have a view on the rights or wrongs of what they're proposing. What we are more concerned with is to support our member councils.
People within New Zealand need to have their say because it's going to affect them hugely if they live by the coast or if they've been in a natural disaster or if they have a natural disaster happen to them. So they really need to have a say in how this plays out because it will affect them at some stage in the near future.
Or, Dave Cull says, some guidance from central government might be useful.
While this situation will create some precedents, each situation around the country, and there will be more and more of them into the future, will be different, which really underscores why local government has been asking central government to give more clarity and guidance in how we deal with adapting to the effects of climate change, particularly with regard to liability or fiscal responsibility.
The time frame for people to make submissions is yet to be released. For Checkpoint, Zach Fleming.